everyone. Welcome to the Minnesota chapter ambassador meeting for the fourth quarter. Sarah Foster is the chapter lead and she is away today. So I'm Cate, ambassador program chairperson from the International Nanny Association, and I will be taking her place today. And our host is both myself and Kellie Garris, who is a member of the INA, longtime member of the INA. And today we are going to kind of take you back through the history of the organization and how it's evolved over the years. So we hope that you enjoy our stories and get a little bit of information on how far the INA has come.
Little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a little bit of fuzziness for us in when it actually started, and even some of the founding members also are like, well, we had the idea 1 year, and then when the actual when they created the membership was in a different year. So it's kind of,
it was around 84, 85. And so I'm not exactly sure if the idea and the concept in that were 84, and then it became organized in the first conference 85, or if the idea was and the concept was 85 and the first conference was 86. But I think it was the previous 84, 85. But as we know, we're into our 35th year, and is that right? 35? Yeah, it'll be our,
no, well, yeah, 35, 36.
Yeah,
next year.
36. Okay.
Yeah.
So
well, if it was 85, right?
Yeah. Last year was going to be our
37.
2020
was 36 there. Yeah.
2020 was going to be the 35th because we were going to be international in Montreal. So yeah.
Yes, every 5 years. In case people don't know that, when conferences happen for the INA, every 5 years, the organization likes to take it to an international location.
Well, that's new. So that was, I think the first was 2015.
Was that Mexico?
Yes, Cancun.
Mm-hmm. Cancun.
Yep.
And I joined the INA in the 2000s, and Kellie joined in the early 90s?
1994. And 94 was my first conference. And then I missed 95, and then have not have attended everything from 1996 on.
I think my first conference might have been in 2012, somewhere between 2010 and 2012 would have been my first conference. So what we know about events and membership as far back as we can remember, well, Kellie mentioned that in 97 you knew the conference rates. And
so there's, if you're not familiar, and I think I showed you, there is a website, I believe it's archive.org, but if you just look up Wayback, and you can type in I think any website, and it'll give you a history, a snapshot timeline of websites. And so back when I was working on the board and different projects, and that was kind of a go-to to kind of, hey, where were they this year, or what was going on this year? And so when you and I were chatting the other night, the earliest that I could find was 1997 for nanny.org, which kind of makes sense. INA started, we'll say 85, before email, before websites, before social media. And so the evolution of them having a website, wasn't immediate, and that, came later in time. And so going back and seeing what it looked like in 1997, and then say 2001, and then 2010, and just the how it has evolved over the years, and kept up with the times and technology and themes and just the capabilities is fascinating if you're into that.
Yeah, it is. I forget too, because when you just said that you just struck a bell, I'm like, yeah, 97. That would make sense when a first website
Mhm.
would be created, because
Yeah,
computers
yeah,
weren't very far, prior to that. So yeah, that makes complete sense.
yeah.
And membership, as far back as we could recall, in 97, right? When you
Hmm.
first became, were individual membership was $79 a year.
Hmm.
Agency memberships were 129 and associate memberships were 255. So if we look at like the differences between then and now, I mean, but in 97, the membership is actually higher than it is
Hmm.
now. I think we're at $55 for an individual professional caregiver membership.
And they've even been lower than that. I believe there was a time they were
Yep.
$35.
They
So,
were 30 just
um,
recently. They were even
hmm.
$40. I think they were $40 a year ago. I think we just
Hmm.
raised dues
Okay.
recently.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, if we really think about it, the inflation from 97 till now, even from 2020 until now, and how, the cost of everything has gone up like drastically, it's impressive that the INA has been able to keep dues, drop them, first of all, from 79 that we can remember down to 35 or $40, and then
Hmm.
keep them at that comfortable place. I imagine that's really hard to do, based on how much everything costs in life. So,
Well, and I think you look at it in that, um, how INA has evolved as an organization over the years. And, back in, let's see, so 94, I believe it was possibly in New Jersey. I would say late 90s, early 2000s. There was a physical office
yep.
in a building. There was staff. There was rent and utilities and fax machines and phone lines and
Well,
one
there
of those
wasn't a
huge.
computer, right? Or was there?
There was a computer,
Yeah.
yes. And there were two.
In 94?
Excuse me. I don't know 94. I don't know, like
So you said 97.
97 through the 2000s, the office kind of evolved. So um, I would probably say though 94, 95, it was, one person. And then as the organization was growing, but yeah, it was staffed. There, if you wanted to pay your dues with a credit card, you had to call them on the phone and give that information. If you wanted to register for conference or um, uh,
Pay your dues.
pay your dues with it, you could use a check, and it was all like a hand form, and you had to send it in. And so, snail mail.
Well, that's the thing.
And
In the earliest days, even before the physical office, before 97, all the records were kept handwritten, because there was no
paper,
other
yeah,
way,
yeah,
to keep the records. So
yeah.
I imagine that a lot of that has, yeah, I don't know what happened to any of it, or where. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I mean, I would imagine that is a great deal of paperwork
A lot of
that,
paperwork. I think, over the years, just as people have left the organization and left leadership and retired and things, I know that there are things that have been lost, but I know that there is a good amount of history out there. Um, and it's just, INA has been able to move from that physical office and keeping up with the times now, and now have remote workers and don't have the overhead of office and utilities and the space aspect of things. So
you've got to tell them. When we were talking the other day, everyone, you'll love this. We have online member directory, and one of our member benefits is to have a member directory online. And Kellie told me the other day, that you tell the story. It's much better about
Are you
how
talking
you
about
had,
the paper directory?
yes,
Yes.
when
So
it,
there
because you had to
used,
order it and it would like come
yes.
like a phone book to you.
Yep. Yep. There was actually, there two versions of it. From what I remember, the first one was like a small, spiral bound, almost like a phone book. But it was agencies. So all the agencies had,
Nice.
the agency members had a listing in there. And it was like alphabetical, and it had the services, it had what services they offered, where they placed, contact info, all of that. And so that was available to members. It was available to the public. It was big with press if they, wanted those resources, if they were working on articles and things. So, parents could call the INA office and say, hey, I'm looking for a nanny in New Jersey. Do you have any agencies? And so they'd pull out their directory and that. And then it evolved. And so that was like it was like a half program size, like half page folded in half. Then it evolved into what our conference program looks like, the full page, kind of the program aspect. And that included nannies, and yes, that was like all the members. That was the membership directory. And so, and then that was made available, provided to members. And then I believe it was available for purchase, but I could be mistaken on that, because it had people's, private information.
Yeah, I think I saw a place on when I was looking at the archive. I think I saw a place on the website that said order your
Mhm.
whatever it
Yeah.
was called at that time. And
And I believe
it
they
like made me
also,
chuckle a little because
yeah,
I can't imagine like flipping through it and
yeah. And I
looking.
believe you could opt out, or you could, have in there like, I don't want my address, I just want my phone number, or I just want my email or something like that. So,
Right.
yeah. But and the newsletter, the Innovision, that used to be printed and copied and mailed out to members, subscribers, people who requested it. All of those publications that you see on the INA website, like the recommended practices, things like that, those were all paper. Those were like double-sided, sometimes even like a 4-page pamphlet type thing. And depending upon if you joined as an agency, if you joined as a nanny, you would get various copies of the paper publications when you became a member. Parents could request them, agencies could buy them in bulk and provide them in their agency packets for when they were working with families and nannies. So those resources have been around a very, very long time.
I love that. And speaking of history, one of the other things that Kellie and I had the privilege of talking about, well, we talk often and often about INA, but we started talking about the history of conference.
Mhm.
And one of the most like special things that she said to me was that conference really hasn't changed. And I loved
No.
that because I love that it's so profound that it doesn't have to change.
Mhm.
It still has the same concepts and still puts out the same, ideas. The tracks are the same, 2.5 days, speakers, sponsors, vendors, awards. But like we keep saying and keep reminding, and we're going to continue to remind everyone throughout, the entire meeting here, is that we're so grateful to have the virtual component now that allows us to have conference abilities to watch at home so you don't have to go. And even for this meeting, we're so thankful to have the, excuse me, I have a dog and we're at home, so two.
Two.
Um, two, they joined us. But just to have the ability to be at our houses right now, having this conversation and sharing everything with the public and all of our membership, we're so lucky to have technology.
Mhm.
And I think our conference is really lucky to have it too, because I think it allows everyone. I don't think, I know it allows more people. It's the outreach is so much more grand.
With the virtual or the
But
in-person?
yeah, with virtual.
Oh, with virtual, absolutely. And, 35 years ago, this wasn't even a blip on the radar. So,
Right.
um, to be able to have a meeting and a conference of such magnitude that it can reach, countries and time zones, and really bring everybody together and spread the word of what INA is. I will say though that the in-person conference, if you
Cannot be
is
replaced.
it cannot be replaced. It is one of the biggest benefits, in that, as a member you get reduced conference rates, but the conference itself, whether you're a member or not a member, and being able to go, I've said this about, other industry events that I go to, but going to an INA conference or a Nanny Palooza, or when DEMA was around, or an APNA conference, the opportunity to go to an industry event and walk into a room full of people
That
that
know
get
exactly what you
it,
do.
that
Yeah.
that get it, that you don't have to explain to someone what you do for a living, or you don't have to apologize for not sharing who you work with, or that some nature of your job. People get it, and so having that opportunity, if it's 2022, if you're like, okay, I'm going to make it happen, it's going to be my 2023 goal, whatever goal it is, I just really encourage people. And if it's not INA, maybe it's Nanny Palooza, maybe, it'll be a smaller training day. But just to be able to connect with other, professionals that get it, that understand you, and just having that camaraderie is priceless.
I agree. I haven't missed, since I've been going to conference, I haven't missed one either. And I wouldn't miss it. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that you can take away from it, but one of my most favorite, and I say it all the time too, and similarly, you and I have similar networking spaces with the other associations and other sectors of our industry. Um, but it's so isolating. It can feel very isolating what we do. So when we go to conference, that's your happy hour, and that's your end of month party and end of quarter thing, and that's where all your friends are. I mean, I can't wait. I'm like, oh my gosh, all my friends are there, and it's incredible because you're all together and you leave there feeling inspired. And
Mhm.
it doesn't everyone's takeaway is a little bit different, and but I haven't heard anyone leave a conference saying anything other than like, I feel inspired. And some people can't even put a reason on why they feel that way, but you do.
Mhm.
You feel that, and then every year you can't wait to go back and see your friends again, because
Wait,
in the line of
yeah.
work we do, we can't exactly take off and be like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just going to go to DC today. And I mean, our friends don't live in the same area that are in
No.
our industry. They live all over the globe.
Yeah.
So
I've always
conferences.
liked the, going to conference and meeting so many different people. And social media has also opened that up a bit, but it's very different. But I always was, um, I don't know what the words, but if I was traveling and I got stuck somewhere, I would probably know somebody through a conference or through social media
Yep.
that I could say, hey, I need help. Or, if my mom was traveling and something happened, I could reach out and say, hey, anybody, just until I get there, because that's just what it does. It creates those relationships. And, but it also too with the agencies. I mean, going to conference and building those relationships with agencies has really helped me in my job search as well. And I wouldn't have those relationships and those connections, had I not gone to conference.
Same. And there's something to be said. I mean, while we don't really have a choice, in the last 2 years to be virtual, there is something to be said about putting a face to a name, but actually having a conversation. The internet can feel a little bit tricky and invading of personal space sometimes, but when you're face to face and having a real time conversation, you are building, like you just said, you are building that relationship, and you get a true sense of what somebody is like. And I mean, one of the conferences I remember, I forget where we were, but I think I like followed you.
Me?
I was like, oh, there's Kellie, I'm gonna go there. And I like sat with you for like an hour. It was one of our breaks, and I was so excited because I couldn't wait to talk more. And you can't do that. I mean, at a 4-day conference, if you go for the whole duration, you have some time, you have some nice downtime to be able to build these special relationships, but actually have like in-depth conversations. And it was so nice to just have that time to, like, we left a conversation, and then the next day I was able to have another one with you. Like, that meant so much to me. I can't do
Aw.
that because you live in DC, I live in Chicago. Like, I can't just walk over and
Yeah.
have a conversation in person. So it's just so nice conference. And it's so nice to know, back to like our true topic, it's so nice to know that conference hasn't changed. I mean, so
Yeah.
there's been some wonderful additions to it, but the
Mhm.
true heart of conference has maintained, its whole self all these years.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone's going to get like a supercharge out of this, because when we were looking up conference rates, and Kellie dates this, most of our stuff goes back to 97 when Kellie was a member, because that's as far back as our, for the history and preparation for this meeting that we were comfortable with sharing. The INA does have a history project going on where they're going to be gathering way more information from previous years to 97. But for us, we just wanted to be really accurate about, our
Yeah.
true knowledge for things. But in 97, full day, like for the full conference experience, it was $210, and now it's $425. And a
Mhm.
one day was $140, and now it's $250. And I have to go back to what we were talking about earlier about what what membership looked like, because if we consider how much things have inflated, if you think about cars and houses and tuition for school, like all of our, even a gallon of milk, a gallon of gas,
Mhm.
like things, how they've inflated over the years, to go from a one day $140 to 250, it's really a small gap. We haven't inflated that much, considering how much everything costs, especially in these past 2 years. So I was so surprised, and I did chuckle a little bit, because I'm like, wow, I'm like, they're really keeping these prices low, considering, how minimal they've raised in all these
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. I mean, they do take all those into consideration, and it's a really fine line that the board has to keep things affordable, yet keep up with the demands of the organization. And so there's a really, really tough balance. And I served on the board over 10 years in various capacities, and then continued volunteering several years off the board. And it's every year it's a really fine line of how much should we raise membership, how much should we raise conference fees, should we charge for this, should we charge for that. So it's a really hard line that they have, keeping everybody happy.
Oh,
So
well, and that's in any,
yeah.
group space. You can't please everybody, but what you were just saying about the board, kind of dives into like our next discussion about, how the board actually works and how it operates. When you're,
Mhm.
I think do we have 12 or 14 seats that actually exist? Do
I
you
believe you can
remember?
have up to 16.
Up to 16? Because
Yeah.
all bylaws and covenants are different. So in
Yeah.
ours, it states how many seats can actually be filled at one
Mhm.
time. And in the last few years, I mean, we've been pretty full We've had
Yeah, I
12.
believe they can have at minimum 6 or so. I'd have to look at the
I
most
think it's
recent
7.
bylaws.
It has to
7,
be an odd
yeah,
number. Yeah.
yeah. And then the maximum 16 seats. And yeah, I mean, it really kind of floats as a really good working board. Um, and terms are 2 years on the board of directors. So you are nominated, or you can nominate yourself to be on the board and fill out an application and go through the process with the nomination committee. And then if you're accepted, then you make it onto the ballot. And then the membership then votes for the board of directors. And that includes any current board member whose term is up. So if they're at the end of their 2 years, if they decide to want to stay on and continue for another term, they would need to be on the ballot as well. And then any new person, and then yeah, that goes to membership for vote. And then the results of that then help determine any returning board members that are going to be staying on. And then it goes to executive board vote. So membership votes for the board of directors. The current sitting board of directors votes in your executive board, and your executive board is your president,
officers.
co-president, first. I think they are not doing second vice president any longer.
Well,
but
a true organization needs a president, a treasurer, and a secretary.
a secretary,
And
yeah.
our organization does allow for so right now there's co-vice presidents, but there has also been co-presidents before.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think it just depends on the board and how they want to structure, time and, what everyone is capable of doing. But the board operates very standardly. I mean, there's, like we discussed the other day, I mean, it follows Robert's rule. And, when you add, let's say there's 12 board members, when you add all these hats together, that's a lot of ideas coming out. And if you're having 12 individual people ideas, plus taking in consideration the entire organization and the general public, because in theory, you want the public to be aware of the organization and, help to increase membership. So, I mean, there's a lot that has to go on for the board to think about.
And I think it's also, back before Zoom and virtual capabilities, we were phone calls, typically in the evening, because we had, nannies, agencies, industry services, educators, any of those membership, categories, anyone in those who meets the criteria can become a board member. And so it was phone calls, and you would have to submit, which I believe you still, a committee report as to what your committee has done since the last meeting. Any new business, old business, proposals, all of that, is submitted in advance. An agenda is created. Secretary is responsible for keeping things on task and keeping things on time and allotting all of that. And
I can't even imagine a secretary doing that via phone. When imagine
handwriting notes.
Handwriting, but then being like, who said yes? Like, who was it for everything? I can't imagine not seeing somebody and having to do that. I mean, what a way that we have come, once again, thanks to technology.
Yes. So, the board meets at conference, which is they'll meet the day.
Now they do. Yep. Twice a year. Well, twice, and then the executive board meets.
And then the executive, yes. And then there are, monthly calls. Obviously, if things come up you know, they can call an emergency meeting and whomever and such. So, you know, there's a really good line of communication with the board. And even when I was on the board, you know, we would get to conference and meet the day of. So if opening reception was Thursday night, the board would meet like all day Thursday, like breakfast to like afternoon. And then they would meet Sunday after conference. And that was usually just kind of just going over in a recap of things and just kind of touching on anything that needed to be wrapped up from the previous meeting. So, and then that was where all the new board members would be joining in as well. So,
right. Well, and I think that everyone needs to also be reminded that as a member, we are eligible to sit in on all of the board meetings. And Kellie and I, for at least the last 5 years, we've sat in, I mean, definitely the last 2 years, we've been to all of the virtual board meetings in spring and fall. And then, but prior to that, anytime at conference, I go to the meetings. And then when I was submitting proposals for the ambassador program, which is why we're here today, I was also at the fall board meetings, which have been in varying areas depending on, you know, location and what makes the most sense, you know, to get the most people in most area at the same time. So, but importantly, and especially now, once again, back to technology, I mean, they have options for people to be able to dial in. And, you know, we always want to encourage everyone to join and sit in on board meetings. You know, it's, you and I get a ton of knowledge out of it. You can't talk, you can't say anything, but there is time at the end for you to.
But there is a way to submit questions and such. Yes, but I know you and I touched on this briefly, but I'll say it again, is that I think for members, it is the most underutilized member benefit that members do, is sitting in and listening to a board meeting. It's open to all members. Again, you can't talk during the meeting. You're there as an observer, but it gives you an honest, true insight into understanding of what it takes to run this organization. And it is a lot. It is a lot. And what a board accomplishes in, you know, let's say 10 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, you know, keeps that organization afloat. And that has been the way ever since I can recall and have been involved in the organization, is that board meetings are open to members to attend. And I wish that more members took advantage of that. And, you know, the last time they did, I had my ear bob in and listened as I was, you know, catching up on some, you know, emails and scheduling some social media and, you know, just multitasking.
I was golfing.
You were golfing.
Yeah, I was golfing, and I had my AirPod in, and it was 2 days. You know, I mean, the meeting was 2 days, and you're on for, you know, like 6 hours. They break a little bit for lunch, and we don't have to be on it. But I think you and I both enjoy being on it. You know, we enjoy listening, and
I like listening, and I like hearing what this organization is doing for me as a member. And you know, there's those out there who will say something or complain about something, but not truly understand why something is done a certain way, why there's, you know, a history of something. And so I think, again, by attending either in person or virtual, an INA board meeting really would benefit members and take advantage of that opportunity.
it also answers a lot of questions. I feel that there are tons of questions that go out there, and even for the general public, and obviously the general public can't be in our board meetings, but as a member, you would have a lot more knowledge. And to be clear, we all sign a document of privacy, because the things that are discussed at board meetings, are proper notes taken by the secretary, and usually meeting agendas and notes aren't, well, it's approved, but the minutes are not approved until the next meeting. So those things can't be discussed, outside of what you hear. But at least for your own self, and I know you probably feel the same way I do, like, I just like knowing, I like knowing what's going on, and I don't have to ask the questions. The office hardly ever hears from me, and I run a program, I'm the chair of this program, and I hardly ever have to talk to the office because I know what's going on. And, you and I said it right the other day when we spoke. It's our right to be here, as members. It's your right. So you should utilize your rights and definitely join in.
Which I think
is
is
also,
a great. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, which is a great segue into kind of the next thing was proposals. When you see something that you like or don't like or have an idea, the board is your go-to for that. And so I know for you, the ambassador program was really important for you. And, kind of how many proposals did you have to submit for that? Seven. Yeah, before it was approved. Yeah. So,
and I kept going back, and my feelings weren't hurt either. And I kept showing up, and I listened to the feedback, and it was honest. They're just like, we need more. We need more. And I was determined. There's often comments made, about our international exposure and inclusivity. And I heard it, and I wanted to change. And I didn't know how to do that other than I just started writing. And, after 7 proposals, I got this program approved. And I remember the day I cried, because I was so proud to be part of change. And I didn't want to just stand by and say, yeah, I agree. I want change, make it happen, and then boss everyone around on how to do it. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to, I want to help make change. So I learned about it in a board meeting. I learned about the change that, many people, the feedback that was being received and what people were wanting. And I had to come up with an idea, because I wanted to make it happen. And our team has grown so beautifully, and hopefully we continue to keep growing. And, our outreach and exposure is, just grows beyond whatever I thought it could be. But most importantly, learning the heart and soul of this program was just learning about what other communities and what other parts of this world need, and trying to learn to adapt, or how to bring that into what we're already doing. If we don't know, I'm not a nanny in Australia. I have no idea what it's like to nanny there. So how am I going to learn about it unless I get exposed to it? So we're so grateful for Louise Dunham is our Australian ambassador, and she hosts wonderful meetings, and it just raises awareness, and that's another member benefit is you can come to all the meetings. They're virtual right now. So you can go to any meeting across the country, and the parts of it like this, the educational components are recorded. So you can find them on our YouTube channel. And that helps us to learn about other parts of the world that we might not otherwise have exposure to. But yes, this program is definitely my baby, and I encourage anyone.
It's important to note, though, that you didn't give up. You didn't take no for an answer. You went
I did a few times.
Yeah, you listened
I just didn't stop.
You listened to what they had to say. And so don't be discouraged if they say no. Take the feedback, and look at it again, get some fresh eyes on it, connect with you, because you're a pro at this now. So and try
2 years
again.
later. Yeah.
And try
it took
again.
7 proposals in 2 years to finally get it off the ground, and then COVID. So I was like, man, but we're still functioning. and we've pivoted and adapted, to everything that's happening. And so is the rest of, like our culture all over the globe. So, yeah, so definitely go to meetings, the board meetings when you can, if you want to, but we both encourage it. And if you want to see changes, be part of the solution.
Yep.
And as we were talking earlier about conferences, and this ties into like the board as well, people are always questioning why the board has to meet for so many hours, and why it's, because it is about 6 hours on Saturday and a Sunday, maybe even a little more, twice a year, plus the monthly, meetings that they have. And then, the executive board meets again, should they need to. But what goes into conference, and you have great experience with this because you were conference coordinator. How many years did you do that?
So I did conference while I was a board member, and then I did conference in a paid capacity when I was no longer on the board. I can't recall, but I believe I did 11 conferences overall. And it is hundreds and hundreds of hours of planning. And while they're planning 2022 right now, they're also already planning 23 and probably looking at 24 as well. So it's not just a one and done. It's like it's a constant evolving process and a balance of where are we going to go, and finding the right hotel. I think some of the things that people don't realize is we're not a big organization when it comes to hotels. And so we can't even get into some cities and some hotels for conferences. Like we're not NACY, who's bringing in 30,000 people. And so the hotels and the rates aren't even available to us. So it's finding kind of that sweet spot of things of where we can go and what they offer and what they can bring to us as an organization. It is, I mean, there is just so much that goes into conference planning.
And then it's every year, you're trying to be on the West Coast and in Central and being on the East Coast. And then you want to go international, but then you also have to have an airport that could receive people from all over the globe.
It needs to be easy to get to and travel and not be 45 minutes from an airport. And so and then it's finding speakers either in that location or within a reasonable, that it's not going to be $2,000 for a plane ticket. What are they going to have for extracurricular, in that, what is there to do in the evening after you're done with conference? I mean, we're going to be in Vegas, so that's not even going to be an issue, but
in 22,
it's in 22. And sometimes I'm trying to think, it was Chicago. We weren't in Chicago. But there wasn't
recently.
Schaumburg, we were in Schaumburg. There wasn't a lot to do around Schaumburg, but
what people don't realize is that coming into Chicago, so you fly into either Midway or O'Hare, and forget it, if you're flying into Midway, you got to drive everywhere. But if you're flying into O'Hare, most people don't want to stay around the airport. They want to go to Chicago. So you want to go downtown. Well, fine. You want to go downtown Chicago. You just more than doubled the cost of what everything is. Parking is never free, ever, zero. Anything that you have, a can of soda, like you said, we'll get into that in a second, but a can of soda in the suburbs might cost $4. A can of soda in the city is an easy $10.
Yep.
So when you're trying to
One
schedule
can.
a can, one.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
when you're trying to schedule a conference, and having just done my own event there, a week ago, it's really, of course you want to put it on at the best possible place and have the
Mhm.
most amenities out there, but also you have to be realistic with cost. I mean, when
Mhm.
your membership only costs, somewhere between 55 and whatever dollars, and then your registration for conference is only 450, that doesn't always cover the cost of food. You're there
That's
for the whole
correct.
weekend. So
Yeah.
you're getting, breakfast and lunch, and, breakfast and lunch again, and then lunch again. So, I mean, it's all these
And then
meals.
opening reception and closing reception and networking breaks, all of that. And so, yeah, a price per head for food can easily be per person $450 for
Oh, yeah.
all of that. And so, early birds, might not even cover that.
Right.
And that's where I was talking to the other night. That's where our sponsors come in. And if we didn't have the
So
support of
grateful.
sponsors and what they bring to the organization, conference would be cost prohibitive for a lot of people.
Well, and that's why I think, one of the most, not most, like everything we're talking about is super important, but, the evolution of our organization and costs in general, we went through earlier how, the full 2.5 days of conference was $210.97, and now it's 425 with inflation and considering COVID and COVID restrictions. So what we could have done in previous years in hotels, if you wanted to put 10 people at a table, you can now only put like 6.
Mhm.
So when you have to take all that in consideration, and like extra hand sanitizing and extra cleaning products for the hotels have had to take on a huge burden with, all of the added, responsibilities that they have, then that
Mhm.
adds cost to everything that we're doing. So the fact that we're able to keep conference at, what I know appears and feels like a really heavy price tag, but considering everything that not only you get out of it, but that goes into it, the
I mean,
hearts and the
just
soul and the
the
everything
oh
energy
yeah,
that goes into this,
yeah.
it really is a great price for
Oh yeah.
everything that you're getting.
I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, not it's not just the food, it's the caliber of speakers you're getting. And I don't even know how many workshops. And it's not like,
Well,
well,
and
you're
there's
a
different
nanny.
tracks. There
Well, and
it's
that's just it. You're a nanny. And so, okay, there's 4 nanny workshops. And I'm just throwing
Yeah.
numbers out there. This is not what it is. But let's say you're a nanny and there's 4 nanny workshops. Well, you don't get just those 4 workshops. If you don't like one of those nanny workshops, you can go to an NCS workshop. Are you thinking about starting an agency maybe 5 years from now? You can go to one of the agency workshops. All of those workshops are open to any attendee to go to.
At any
So
time. So
at
if
any time,
you're
yeah.
sitting in the middle of it and
Mhm,
it's not filling your cup,
mhm.
head on over to the next one,
Exactly.
or
Yep.
go meet your friend Kelly and sit in the lobby and start up a great conversation, because you never know. Sometimes nothing in the tracks are going to work for you, and that's okay too. It's not
Yep.
wasting your money. Find someone to talk to, make a new friend, and
Visit a
then when you fly to
vendor.
DC,
Yeah.
you can go see your friend Kelly.
Yep.
Or when your plane gets delayed, like you said earlier, then you have someone to call. And
Yep.
I mean, there's so much more that you can get out of it, and there's always somebody around. At conference, it is never, silent hallways. There is
Yeah.
always people walking around and going in between things. There's somebody always at registration, so
Still, as
you're
long as
never
it's not
alone.
happening at midnight outside your door and you have to call hotel security to have
That
them
never
moved.
happened to me.
It
That
did
never
for me.
happened to me. um So one of our next topics is
Mhm.
to shine some light around Nanny of the Year, and mostly Nanny of the Year, but like other like honors. So like Meritorious, Kellie. So I'm the 2021 Meritorious Service Award recipient, and Kellie has also been a Meritorious Service Award recipient. What
2020.
year was it?
Yeah.
2020. Oh,
2020.
we're back to
Yep.
back. That's so
Yep.
fun. And Kellie was also a Nanny of the Year, and
1997.
97, and I was a Nanny of the Year nominee twice, in I want to say 2018 and 2019. I
Yep.
was, and very proudly, even though I never received the award, it was so honorable to be in the company of, the other four nannies that were also candidates. It,
I don't think
I,
I
you were.
Okay, I don't think I told you this the other night. The year that I was Nanny of the Year, there were 11 nominees. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. I was only in the company of four others both times, and I will say I still speak to, so the very first year that I was a nominee, Candy won, and I still talk to her frequent
Mhm.
enough. Kenda was with me there, and Helen had preceded us in 2016, who is now a board member. She's co vice president. But I made some everlasting
Mhm.
relationships. And even in the second round as well, um, I'm just so proud to know these people, and I'm so proud that we still speak and take the time, and which is another thing, a great thing about not only being a member but also going to conference, because I had the opportunity to spend time with my fellow nominees and to, you know, it's a different feeling,
Mhm.
which you can also attest to. But we really wanted to shine some light around how Nanny of the Year works, because we know that there's a lot of buzz about, not having all of the information, and having both of us gone through it, you receiving the award and me just going through it multiple times and being a
Mhm.
nominee. We have a very clear understanding of how things work. So we just
Mhm.
wanted to touch on it quickly and share, the
Yeah.
actuals about it.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about Nanny of the Year. Um, but it has definitely evolved from when I received it in 1997 to where it is now. In 1997, you could self-nominate, and I
Hmm.
was going to nominate myself. I was working on my application when I was flying with my employer at the time, and she just casually just asked, oh, what are you doing? And I told her, and she's like, oh, well, I'll nominate you. And so she and I then worked on the application, and I
Well, and
I
back then the
received the honor.
application was paper once
It was
again,
paper. Yeah,
and you
it
had to
was
fill out
paper.
four, right?
And yes, you had to create four. Back then, I created a portfolio essentially of my nanny career, which was still, I had only been a nanny since 1989. So I was still, I was only 8 years into this. So still, I think, relatively new. I had only been to two conferences at that time. But in 94, I met a nanny at conference. And then, like I said, I missed 95. And then in 1996, I met her again. And she is the other half of the infamous Kellie and Karen duo. So I met my BFF of 30 years, well, 25 years, I think. Yeah, 25. And at an INA conference. And um, it was, yeah, just the nanny of the year aspect, the portfolio. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But it was a portfolio, and it was essentially just one of those really nice report kind of binders that had a little spiral inside, and you flip the things. And I had certificates and photos and that. But yeah, it was paper. And yeah, you had to submit four, send them to the office. And even up until recently, you had to submit four, and then they would, uh,
2016, I think
was that the last year? Yeah.
that was the
So they
last year
all
they
went to
did
the
that.
office, and then the
2017
office
maybe.
then sent each, all of the portfolios in to the judges. And then that's how things were done. And then now it's digital. Everything's
Yep.
online,
Way easier.
and yeah,
Still
and
thorough though. Like
still
don't let
thorough.
it fool
No,
you. It was
there is a
hundreds of
huge
hours to fill this out.
it is and it's a huge metrics to evaluate and put a value on the candidates, and the judges, uh, they don't know who the nominees are. Any identifying information is redacted from the applications, and so it's blind nominations, that the judging panel is getting.
And the
um,
judging panel has nothing to do with the board. The board
no.
does select the committee essentially, but
Yes.
the committee is so well vetted and
The board has no say in who receives Nanny of the Year. The board has no bearing on this candidate having any personal connection to a board member. That is just off the table. The board is so removed from the selection of Nanny of the Year itself, other than who is going to be on the selection committee.
Yep.
So yeah.
And they do a really nice job. I learned about this in the last several years, but they do a really nice job of selecting their committees and making sure that people aren't, don't have conflicts of interest in the industry. The people that are selected are really wonderful selections, and it's such a great honor to be. I've never been on a selection committee, but what a great honor it must be to be considered so well respected that you have the honor of picking this person to
Mhm.
receive this really beautiful award. And I think it's also kind of funny because the board just, it's almost like getting a piece of paper, like you pick it out of a hat and like, here's your piece of paper and this is who your nanny of the year is. And they're like, oh, I mean, it's
Mhm.
just as much of a surprise to the board as it
Mhm.
is to the nanny of the year. I mean, obviously
Yep.
they find out before the nanny of the year does, but they have no idea, so that everyone is
Do they?
really surprised. No, the board
Does,
has no idea.
oh
The
no,
board has
no.
to know. Yeah. No, the board has to know before the nanny of the year does, because
Why?
they have to tell the nanny of the year that they're the
Oh, the
nanny of the year.
board is, oh, see, that's changed. It was always so when I was on, and I know for several years, the outgoing nanny of the year was the one to contact the new nanny of the year. And so she would be the one to tell her.
Well, I've never
And
won,
then,
so I wouldn't know really. But in the
yeah,
past few
yeah,
years, whoever nominated them, like I know in Candy's year, I believe it was
yes. So then
somebody
that
that,
kind of, yeah. So then that kind of evolved from there, is that, um, as you know, we had the opportunity to videotape, and with our phones and things like that. So as technology and such evolved, then I believe the opportunity was given to the person who nominated, and then that's kind of where we saw like families and charges, welcoming at the door,
yep,
surprising with a big balloon bouquet or something like that, letting the recipient know that they had won. So, but yeah, it's evolved. But yeah, back then it was the outgoing nanny of the year would let the new nanny of the year know.
yeah,
So.
I have no idea. I think that they're all surprised now until they get, because I remember I think it was Candy's video, and she was like getting balloons, or
Mhm.
maybe um someone else's too. So I think it
Mhm.
also depends on how everything
Yeah.
works out.
Yeah.
But I would say key takeaways for this part of our conversation is that
Mhm.
the board has nothing to do with it. This is
Correct.
all just external completely. And second of all, the board does a great job of advertising to what their funding, that like what the budget can allow, and for what technology can allow. They get the information out there, but they can't do it alone. So if we want people to be nominated,
Mhm.
start nominating them. If you've got friends in different countries and in different areas, nominate them. because we can't do it alone. Get out
No.
there, and we want to see diversity all over, and we can't do that unless people start nominating
I
other
mean,
people. So tell your
anyone
friends.
can, yeah, anyone can nominate. Your employers could nominate you. Your
Your
parents
friend.
could nominate you. Your friend could nominate.
You just can't nominate
Agencies,
yourself.
no, correct. Agencies, you know that you have some fabulous deserving nannies out there. Nominate them for Nanny of the Year. And
Or at least tell people when
yeah,
it's open, share, click your post, share it,
yeah,
or tell one
share
person, because that one person might tell another person. So get the word out that
share it on
it
social.
exists.
Send an email out to all your families, just saying, hey, I know you all love your nannies. Here's a great way that you can recognize them.
Or even
So,
remind the agencies that you're, working so well with. You and I both have made some great agency connections at
mhm,
conference, and even just reminding them, to say, hey, by the way, I don't know if you saw recently that
mhm,
nominations are open. What do you think about
yeah,
sending an e-blast? I'd be happy to receive questions about it if you want to tag my email on it. So it's all about word of mouth, get the word out
yeah,
there, because we'd love to see, more candidates from all over the place. And just share. And I will say this too, if you are a former Nanny of the Year nominee or an incoming nominee and you do not receive the award, you are still so incredible. It can be
it's
very
hard.
devastating to
Yeah,
hear. I heard it twice and I cried both times.
yeah,
And because so much heart goes into it. You spend, like we said earlier, hundreds of hours building this document to send over, and it is your entire world of being in this industry. And when you work so hard and then it's like, no, it's not you, it is so sad, but you are still so incredible. Like, it is such an honor. I put it on my resume. It is such an honor to be in the
hmm
company of some highly regarded people, across the globe.
it
In our
it
in
really
our
is.
organization, we do have members that scatter all over. And while we'd love to have more international, member exposure, what we do have, it is beautiful to be in the company of, all these wonderful people. So don't be discouraged. I'm still here.
Yeah, no, it really is an honor just to be nominated. And I know
It
that
is.
that's, kind of cliche, but it really is true
Well,
with
somebody took
this
the time
award.
to nominate you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that's an honor
yeah,
right there, that somebody values you that much. Your employer valued you that much to say, hey, Kellie, I'll do this for you. I mean, that's incredible.
exactly.
My employer did that for me, and then a different employer did it for me the second time. And
Yeah,
I was so proud.
yeah.
Which also kind of leads us into a little bit of the international component of our organization, which is
hmm
another kind of sensitive topic, kind of like the Nanny of the Year one, where it's, I wouldn't say that there's people are misinformed, but it's just, I feel like it's our job to help, you know, everyone to understand how hard it is for an organization to be truly international and to, um, to continue to evolve over time. When this organization started, I feel like I don't know the exact stories, and I'm still working on getting them. And like I said before, the history project will probably have a lot more clarity on this. But it's people meeting in a room, like six people that were just like founding members, and you have to create bylaws and do all these things. And in the 80s, you couldn't, were you going to send a telegram or a fax over to another country to try and invite it? They started something to make this a global, they call the INA the umbrella organization. And the true intent is to be, globally recognized. And it's only been since the 90s that we've had exposure to the internet. And even then, you weren't exactly communicating. I talk to people from the UK weekly, but I didn't do that in the 90s. We
hmm
didn't have that kind of exposure. And as as time has gone on and technology has better allowed us, especially social media, you do have more availability to talk to people, but it hasn't always been that way. So, I mean, the
Correct.
fact that, the INA has been standing on its feet since the 80s and gone through all this test of time, is truly the test of time. And it continues to adapt and evolve. When people raise problems, just like the ambassador program, when people say that there's a problem, people are stepping up and trying to make changes. And
Mhm.
it doesn't happen overnight. 2 years, people, 2 years and 7 proposals is what it took for me to get this program going.
Yeah.
So it just is, it's patience and just knowing that it's not like the organization's not trying. They haven't stopped
Sure.
trying. It's a continuous effort, and it's kind of like the Nanny of the Year, where talk to your friends. I just told you I talk to people in the UK almost daily. I talk to people on LinkedIn that are in Scotland and people that are in India. And the more you raise awareness, the bigger we're going to get. But I mean, we can't forget that the INA there isn't another country that's doing this, that's saying like, hey, let's be a global organization, let's work together and do this. The INA is trying its hardest to truly be a beautiful representation of what international looks like, and it doesn't happen overnight. So
Sure.
it's just patience. And I know the new website isn't out yet, but I know that there's going to be great language solutions on there to change language to your preferred standard language. And we can't forget how many of our actual documents have been converted at this time. The basic skills assessment has been updated to multiple languages, and the credential exam, and I think the NCS one either has been, or it might be on hold right now, but I know the Nanny credential exam has been translated. So, but once again, now that we have translation available in, because of technology, we have outreach to get people to help translate, because it hasn't always been a cost-effective way to do things. To get things translated has cost a ton of money. I mean, now I can talk to Google and it will tell me, I don't know if it's accurate, but it will tell me 100 things in a different language. But this is just always back to, time, that as time has gone on, the INA has
and I
adapted.
think this also, I believe they were members, but a lot of members stepped up and assisted with the translation. And so, that is a very small way that you can make a big impact with the organization. And so it's not like you have to volunteer and you're hearing, the board is spending hours on phone calls and meetings. If you have maybe, 5 hours to give over the course of several months, there may be, a project that you can help on. So there's numerous ways to volunteer with the organization, and it can be, a very small impact, and it can be a very large impact, but all of it is welcome.
Well, and that's just utilizing your membership. Being a member means that you do get to have a say in things, but you actually have to speak up and say something. So, but if you do speak multiple languages, the office would love to hear from you and love to see how you want to see things in a different language, or how you want to see even wording choices, how things are done. I know that in other parts of the world, the time and date are read differently, and bring it up. I don't think that anyone, I wouldn't say no, like people don't, I don't know how many proposals have ever gotten turned down per se. So I think some of them kind of turn into something else, but I don't know how many things actually get turned down. And that, even the ambassador program, like, great, it took 2 years and 7 proposals, but then I was like, okay, now I need it in different areas. Like, this is great, but I need more. And I brought back the chapters. We wouldn't be here if that didn't exist. This is the Minnesota chapter's meeting right now. And I'm so grateful that Sarah Foster asked us to present this because, what a great honor. But people can view this. It'll be on our YouTube channel after, maybe tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure when it goes up, but especially because we're so late tonight. Well, we're in different time zones. Kellie's in the East Coast
Eastern,
and
yeah.
I'm Central, and Minnesota is actually, I think Minnesota is still my time zone. So we're still 7 p.m. is still the same for our start time. But it's like we were just saying though, if you have an idea, if you have something to say, the office is always open because of technology. So write an email or call and leave a voicemail. And, even go on your portal. The portal has a space too to send in about, either inquiries or comments. So utilize it. This is all part of our membership. And I think we kind of dove in. Sorry.
I say, which I think kind of brings us to the last thing that we were going to talk about is why we are members, correct? Yeah.
Yep. Well, just real quick, I want to back up for 1 second. Because there's a little bit that we wanted to discuss, and it's more of just a reminder. Like we've been saying, nothing happens overnight. But of everything that we've already said in the last hour, little over an hour, so much has changed, going from paper to digital, going from having a brick and mortar office to being in a home, and, in somebody's private home and doing things virtually. And to not raise things, we had dues were in 97, $79 for, a single caregiver. Now they're 55. So when we're bringing our dues down, it means that our overhead costs also have to go down. So we can't even, the way our organization is sitting right now, we couldn't afford to do the things that we do if we had people in the office and we're paying for those overhead costs. So we have truly come a long way, and understanding that the office, while yes, reach out and send your proposals and get ideas out there, but also understand that our office does work from home. And especially in the last 2 years, COVID has been really hard, and we all have jobs. Kellie and I both worked all day. I didn't even eat supper yet. So we're working all day. This is all volunteer. We're not getting paid, but even our office people, they have families, they have other things that they're doing. And life, if we've learned anything in the last 2 years, life happens. So finding a little bit of grace in, just making sure that everyone, is not busy, because everyone is important, but just.
Yeah. And I think that's also a good segue to our point to make, is that, I know that INA has introduced a new member dashboard, and they're going to be introducing a new website. There are going to be glitches, and there are going to be things that you're not familiar with. And just, when you reach out, hey, I can't, renew, or I can't find this or that, just everybody's learning along with you. And so just, take a breath, and, Marcia and Linda do an amazing job in the office, and, they will take care of it. Just have a little patience.
Yes. And, even to dial it back even further, a lot of the projects that we have been independently funded. The service award pins were originally independently funded by members. So when we can't afford things, or they're not budgeted for, we can't just pull money out of midair, or move money that we allocated for this and push it over here. We have to do things. This organization, being a not-for-profit, it has to follow a certain set of guidelines and rules. So we can't just do whatever. And sometimes that means that if you want to see something done, you spend your own money and do that. This is right here. This is all me. I wanted something that could be branded for myself, so that when I did things, for the INA's ambassador program, that I was proud and had it. And I probably could have asked for a budget for it and then gotten it later, but I wanted it right now. So I got it right now.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to do that, because it is part of how I give back. And that leads us, like you were saying earlier, into the next part, and kind of how we're going to conclude this, of why we're members. So
Yeah.
you can take your lead.
I have been a member since 1994. INA is a huge part of who I am as a nanny, as a household manager now. And it's an organization that was made for me in what I do in my career. And if you were a teacher, if you were a lawyer, if you were a nurse, all professions have, a welder, they all have professional organizations. And so why wouldn't you want to be part of an organization that, brings to you resources and news and education that is going to help you grow personally and professionally? So, that for me has been INA. It has opened the door for me career-wise. I have made so many friends that I can't even begin to describe the friendships and relationships that I have as a result of this organization. And it just, I may not always agree with some of the things they do. I can be vocal, but that's part of being a member. And we can agree to disagree on things, and respect that people have different points of view on things. But overall, we are in it for the industry in itself.
And I think that's, like we've said all day, you don't have to love all of it, just like you said about, you don't always have to agree. You don't have to participate in anything. But I don't have another organization that has as many benefits that this does. And to be honest, like, I can't keep up with all of the benefits that the INA offers, because
Mhm.
it's too much for me. I can keep up with the things that like really hit home, or the I want to learn a little bit about the newest things. I love the president's letter that comes out monthly, because it kind of gives me a recap on things that I might have missed, or a reminder to like what's coming up or what I should check in with. But you don't have to use all of the benefits, but knowing that they're there for you, you have no idea when you might need it. And then when you do, it's going to be there waiting for you. But saying, I've heard often, or not often, often is not the right word, but it has been said, what does the INA offer? What does it give to me? Well, what do you want it to offer? What is it that you want that you're not seeing? There's your proposal, write it in. But also, have you looked? Did you look on your portal?
And
Have you looked on the website? Because it might already exist. Or if you went to the board meeting, you might have heard about it. It might be up and coming, but
But Cate,
there's
where else can you pay as a nanny? I know there's NCSs and agencies and other factors
I
of
spend more money in gas
membership.
in my car.
Okay, where else can you pay $55 a year for a membership and get free webinars, weekly, monthly, quarterly, a virtual conference at a reduced rate, amazing blog posts from professionals, a library of resources to help you either in your job or finding a job, or if you're an agency, to provide to your parents and your nannies. I mean, where else can you get that?
Well, in our
You
industry, it
can't.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, it
In our
doesn't.
industry, we're it,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. And and I would add to that, I mean, like we've been talking this entire time, I to pay $55 a year and to know that I'm amongst people like yourself and some of our other dear friends, you know, you even said it earlier, your best friend Karen. I mean, you meet some of
Mhm.
your most incredible friends in this industry and through the organization. And without that, that's priceless to me. And I'm sure that
Mhm.
you would, it doesn't matter how much money you've paid over the years for whatever you've done, every single cent of it is worth every single, you know,
Oh,
part of your
it's
bucket that's filled
I
because of the
have
friendships that you've
yeah,
made.
yeah. I also think though is that, I've been in this industry for 32 years. INA is 36 years, will be 36, 30, yeah. Um, it- you know, there are so many, INA has created a legacy for so many individuals. You know, people aren't gonna they don't know, and they never had the opportunity to meet Harriet Grant,
Mm-hmm.
who really paved the way for nannies and was the first INA Nanny of the Year. She started the first and still longest running nanny support group in the country, AdCan, which is here in DC, which I'm proud to be part of. Um, you have, Glenda Probst, you have Becky Kavanaugh, you have Mary O'Connor,
Sandy
who had an
Costantino.
agent, Sandy Costantino, Alan Friedman. Alan was on the board of directors, I believe, from the very beginning or shortly after, and served, oh my goodness, for probably close to 20 years. Um, and I learned so much from that man and just his way of being a board member and just his way of thinking and talking. And there are so many before them, and the new the younger generation. I'm aging myself, but it is a generational thing in that
Oh yeah.
I'm of an older generation, you're of a younger generation, and there's even newer and younger generation behind us, and they're not going to know all these things that we did as an organization to get where we are 5, 10, 15 years from now. And so this conversation has just been a great way to, like I said, we started just a really good trip down memory lane. Um, there are just so many wonderful men and women who really truly paved the way and have set the legacy of INA that are never going to be recognized and remembered. And I hope that this is just a small way of just reminding people that INA is made up of people that make the organization.
Well, and and kind of to finish us out on that too, one of the things that you and I co-created was, legacy for us is becoming involved in the organization and helping to create and carry on history. So history is what allows us to be here today, everything
Mhm.
that we've gone through, and evolution helps us to grow to the next, whatever comes next. But importantly, we do need to remind everyone where we started and where we came from. And we also, it's our duty to train the next generation and to share and to help carry on these legacies and to help cherish our history, because it wasn't easy, and to be honest, it's still not easy. In that's it doesn't matter if you are a member and a board member, a member and a committee member, a committee chair. I've never sat on the board, and to be honest, it kind of terrifies me because it's just so much work. It really is. And I know as a committee chair how much work that I put in to just doing this part of it. And you have to be ready. I mean, you have to be ready for the phone calls and ready for the volunteer component of that and not getting paid. And it's it's so important to just recognize how important everyone in our organization is. And
Yep.
and even the people that aren't with us anymore, for whatever reason it is, they're no less important. If you were
Correct.
once
Yeah.
part of this organization and aren't with us anymore, you're not unseen. I know that the history project that the INA is working on will help bring a lot of that back to life. But I'm so proud that you and I came together today and were able to share about our experiences and how our participation in the organization, and how our participation has evolved over
Yep.
all the years
Yep.
that we've been in it. We're proud to share our story. And now that we're digital, we're proud that it will be available to anyone, in the globe on our YouTube channel to see. And we encourage you to share your stories and join us for our chapter meetings that exist. And if you can't, all of those are on our YouTube channel as well. So we really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And I know how much I appreciate everyone that has preceded us and that will succeed us in our roles and just in, their efforts in the organization in general. And Kellie, I especially appreciate you for taking the time to join me tonight. And I appreciate Sarah Foster for allowing us to present on her Minnesota chapter.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for having me. It was great to chat about this. I enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you.